AI grading AI. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi flick, doesn't it?
Like robots giving each other gold stars for good code.
Well, kinda, yeah. That's what we're diving into today, this whole world of AI judges.
Ah, so not just handing out grades, but actually evaluating the work of other AI. Serious stuff.
Exactly. We've got this research paper about building AI systems that can tell if another AI is actually producing something amazing or just a bunch of digital gibberish.
And we're talking objectively judging here, right? No human bias, just cold, hard data. That's where this judge bench comes in.
Yeah, JudgeBench. It's a wild name, right? But it's basically a benchmark, a way to put these AI judges through some rigorous testing.
Okay, so before we get all into the nitty-gritty, let's take a step back. For folks who aren't knee-deep in AI every day, why do we even need these AI judges?
Right, good point. Well, picture this. The world of AI is massive and it's growing crazy fast.
Yeah, and until recently, the way we've been evaluating all these new models is, well, pretty old school. Humans.
Which, I mean, we're good at judging things, but can you imagine trying to review every single thing every AI produces these days?
It'd be like trying to read and grade essays from every student on the planet times a million. It's just not scalable.
Exactly. And that's where these AI judges come in. They could theoretically analyze way more, way faster than us mere mortals.
Makes sense. Frees up human experts for, I don't know, more creative stuff, right?
Yeah, or at least just the really complex AI stuff that still needs that human touch. But then, of course, the big question is, how do we know these AI judges are any good?
Right. How do we trust them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what these researchers wanted to figure out. They created JudgeBench to test the reasoning of these AI judges.
So, like, how well can these AI judges actually judge? How'd they even do that?
Well, get this. Their thinking was, if an AI can't consistently solve a really difficult problem, it's probably going to struggle to judge how well others solve that same problem.
Makes sense. Like, if I can't bake a cake, I shouldn't be judging the Great British Bake Off.
Huh? Perfect analogy. So they had to find a way to create these super tricky judgment calls for the AIs. That's where JudgeBench comes in.
Okay, hit me with it. What's the secret sauce?
So imagine these crazy hard data sets, right? We're talking advanced math problems, complex coding challenges, logic puzzles that make your head spin.
Yeah, real brain busters. Okay, then what?
Then they get a single, very powerful AI, and they have it generate multiple solutions to each problem in the data sets. Some right, some wrong.
Ah, sneaky. So they're trying to see if the AI judges can tell the difference between solutions that might look really similar on the surface, but
But one's actually right, and one's got a fatal flaw somewhere in its logic.
clever. Did they at least give the judges some easy ones to start with?
Not really. They actually went out of their way to get rid of any questions where an answer might be considered wrong, just because of formatting quirks or whatever.
So they weren't going easy on them at all.
Nope. AI obstacle course. No mercy. What kinds of AI judges did they round up for this?
Oh, they had a whole lineup categorized in a few ways. First up, the prompted judges. Pretty straightforward. Give them a couple of answers and a prompt, see what they pick.
And the prompts, were they like super basic? Or
Some were simple, like, which is better?
Yeah.
But then they got fancy. Some prompts were more like role-playing scenarios to see if that changed how the AI judged.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so prompted judges, check. Who else?
Next category, fine-tuned judges. Now, these AIs were specifically trained on data sets of human preferences.
Okay, so they're shown a bunch of examples of what humans consider good, so they can try to learn those preferences, like training a robot to appreciate good writing.
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't stop there. They also wanted to see what happened when they got multiple AIs in on the action.
Multiple AIs, like is there an AI judge panel now?
Basically, these are what they called multi-agent judges. Imagine a bunch of AIs all debating which answer is best and then voting.
AIs dot debating. Now that's something I want to see.
It is pretty wild to think about. One example is ChatEval, which basically simulates a whole panel of experts weighing in on these answers.
Okay, now that's just cool. All right, so we've got our obstacle course, we've got our AI contestants. What happened?
Well, to no one's surprise, JudgeBench was tough. Like, really tough.
Even for these AI brainiacs. Come on, give me the good gossip. What were some of the biggest surprises they found?
Well, for one, size definitely matters. The bigger, more powerful AI models did way better than the smaller ones. No surprise there, I guess.
The bigger they are, the harder they think, huh? Okay, what else?
This is where it gets interesting. Remember those fine-tuned judges? All that training on human preferences.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be crushing it.
Well, they actually did worse than the simple prompted judges a lot of the time. Can you believe that?
Wait, really? That's wild. I mean, training on all that human data, you'd think they'd have an edge.
You would, but it actually might point to the fact that human judgment, while great for some things, can be kinda messy, inconsistent, subjective, you name it, especially with these really complicated reasoning tasks.
So our human biases might actually be holding AI back.
Ah, okay, that's fascinating.
Right, and this is why we need AI judges that can go beyond surface level stuff, you know?
Yeah.
They've got to grasp the logic, the reasoning behind these complex problems.
Speaking of which, weren't there those special reward models the researchers tested? Didn't those show some promise?
Oh yeah, the reward models, good memory.
Yeah.
These AIs weren't just picking the best answer, they were trained to score it based on, specific criteria.
So instead of just saying which cake is better, they're explaining why it's better, breaking it down like a pro baker would.
Exactly. And they did pretty darn well, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, this whole idea of training a more specialized AI to evaluate a stronger AI, well, it might just be crazy enough to work.
Now, that is an intriguing thought, isn't it? Makes you wonder what other tricks we could teach these AI judges to make them even better. Right. It's like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
It's like we're trying to create the ultimate AI taste tester, but for like problem solving instead of fancy desserts.
Right. And this research is about way more than just, grading AI's homework. This could totally change how we develop AI in general.
Okay, now you've really got my attention. Give me the big picture. How could this play out in the real world?
Imagine if we weren't held back by how slow and expensive human evaluation is.
Yeah.
Like, picture tons of these AI judges all working nonstop, checking out thousands, maybe even millions of AI models all at the same time.
It'd be like the AI Olympics, 247, pushing the limits of what AI can do.
Exactly. We could test out totally new AI designs so much faster, try out way more complicated problems. I mean, who knows what kind of breakthroughs we could have. Curing diseases, making energy grids super efficient.
Okay, yeah, that sounds amazing. But also kind of intimidating, right? I mean, didn't this research also show that the AI judges we have now, they aren't exactly perfect?
Yeah, it's definitely not all sunshine and roses. We've got a long way to go. One of the biggest things this JudgeBench study showed is that AI really struggles with reasoning, especially with those super tricky, nuanced problems.
So it's not enough for them to just be good at like spotting patterns or picking up on hints.
Nope. They need to be able to understand the problem and the solution on a deeper level.
Like that student who writes a really eloquent essay, but it's all just fluff, no real substance.
Exactly. And that's a big deal because if we're going to let AI judges make important decisions someday, we need to know they're not just, parrots repeating what they've heard without really getting it.
So how do we get them there?
Yeah.
How do we teach them to actually think critically?
$1 million question, right? The JudgeBench research actually gives us a couple of hints. Remember those thinking models from OpenAI? The ones that actually take a minute to process before giving an answer?
Yeah, like they're actually pondering the problem.
Right. Well, they consistently did better than the models that just spit out an answer right away.
Interesting. So maybe it's not just about making AIs bigger and faster, but also about making them slow down and think things through.
It could be. Maybe we need to completely rethink how we train AI. Instead of just giving them tons of data, we need to find ways to teach them logic, reasoning, maybe even common sense.
Which, let's be honest, even humans struggle with sometimes.
Totally. But it's essential. We need to teach these AI judges to think more like, scientists or detectives.
Ooh, I like that. Examining the evidence, looking for inconsistencies, not just jumping to conclusions based on what seems obvious at first glance.
Yes. And maybe even more important, we need to teach them to be a little skeptical. Don't just accept everything you see as true, Question your assumptions, consider other perspectives, be open to being wrong sometimes.
It's funny, those are all things we think of as being very human. It's like by trying to build these super smart AIs, we're also learning more about how we think. And it makes you wonder if we're using our own brains as this blueprint for AI judges, are we accidentally, passing on our flaws too? Like, are we setting them up to make the same kind of mistakes we make?
It's a really interesting thought, isn't it? And I think it speaks to this bigger issue. As AI gets more sophisticated, we're bound to see more of these reflections of ourselves in it, our thought processes, our strengths, but also our weaknesses.
Yeah, and that brings up a big question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As AI gets better at judging, at making decisions, where does that leave us? The human judges, I mean.
Right, like, are we always going to be the ones calling the shots, setting the standards for what's right and wrong when it comes to AI? Or is there a point where we need to, trust the judgment of these AI creations we're making, even if it goes against what we think?
And this isn't just about AI judges, is it? This applies to any field where AI is making huge leaps.
Absolutely. We're talking about the very definition of intelligence, objectivity. How do we even navigate a world that's increasingly run by algorithms?
It gets kind of philosophical, doesn't it? Trying to define thinking while we're building machines that might be able to think differently than us one day.
It really does. And that's why this kind of research, like this JudgeBench study, is so important. It's not just about building a better AI. It's about understanding the limits of where we are now and making sure we're developing this technology responsibly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be incredibly powerful, but it's not inherently good or bad. It's all about how we use it. It's on us to make sure it's used to make things better for humanity.
We can't just sit back and hope for the best.
Yeah.
We all have a role to play in shaping how AI develops and how it impacts our lives.
100%. And a big part of that is staying informed, talking about these issues, asking tough questions. What are the ethics involved? What are the potential consequences? This is a conversation we all need to be a part of.
Couldn't agree more. So to all our listeners out there, keep digging, keep asking questions, and definitely keep that curiosity alive.
Until next time.